Ouais les gars, c'est Romano, on se retrouve aujourd'hui sur un jeu très particulier. On va totalement se retourner le cerveau. On va jouer à Stanley Parable. Ça fait bien longtemps que je veux le faire, je l'ai jamais fait. Je sais même pas comment décrire ce jeu, vous allez voir. Vous allez vite comprendre. Avez-vous déjà joué? Non. Le mieux que je peux vous dire, c'est que si ça me plaît, ça part en let's play, ça c'est sûr. Et déplacer le curseur jusqu'à ce que... Ok, c'est bon. C'est ultra mindfuck comme truc, c'est très très spécial. Entrée l'heure actuelle, il est 23 heures. Ah putain, c'est en anglais, je suis du père en anglais. Euh, donc du coup, il est 11 PM, non? Ah, M, c'est avant midi. Moi, c'est PM, 11 PM, 43, on va mettre 44, est-ce que ça va passer? On va mettre 43, là, 44, parfait, ça va être passé. Remarque les paramètres d'accessibilité sont accessibles depuis le menu. Ok, ok, ok. Ah, déjà là, c'est déjà chelou déjà. Est-ce que je peux jouer manette? Ça, c'est la question. Ça m'arrangerait. Je peux jouer manette, c'est merveilleux. Est-ce que j'ai les touches PlayStation? J'ai les touches PlayStation, c'est incroyable, c'est merveilleux, c'est magnifique, c'est parti. Vous allez voir, c'est ultra chelou comme concept. C'est juste des choix, juste
This
des.
is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Et là, ça va être à moi de jouer, j'imagine. Ouais, effectivement. Incroyable, putain, c'est. La sensibilité est très 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 basse. Je regarde juste si je peux changer ça. Ok, on va mettre encore plus haut. 10. Ouais, voilà,
All
c'est
of his
beaucoup mieux.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Il y a absolument personne. Je diminue rien. Faut juste que je trouve mon l'équilibre parfait. Ouais, comme ça, c'est bien, je pense.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
On va écouter ce qu'ils me disent. Je sais pas s'il faudra toujours écouter ce que la voix me dit. Mais c'est un peu le but du jeu, vous allez voir.
Yet there was not a
Ah.
single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Malheureusement, moi et mon anglais, je peux pas bien lire. Je sais pas s'il y a des refs ou quelque chose, mais C'est un peu délicat pour moi.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known
Elle est
was
énorme
the
la pièce.
keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845.
Okay.
But of course, Stanley couldn't
2, 8,
possibly
4,
have
5.
known this.
2, 8, 4, 5.
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
C'est vraiment un délire ultra particulier. Hein. Ok, petit temps de chargement.
Descending deeper into the
Ça fait très
building,
Truman Show.
Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Est-ce qu'on est seul au monde? Est-ce que tout le monde a disparu? Moi, ce qui est bien,
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
ce qui est bien avec ce jeu-là, c'est que je me suis vraiment re-spoilé. Oh, escape ou mind control. Je me suis vraiment re-spoilé, donc je découvre. Là, je suis curieux de savoir ça aurait fait quoi si j'avais été dans escape. Mais bon.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça?
Now the monitors jumped to life,
Oula.
their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant
Elle est où
nothing.
la nôtre? 527. Non, c'était 427. Ah, c'est là. Ah ouais, c'était la nôtre, c'est notre bureau.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content, walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Je parle pas énormément parce que voilà, je lis et j'écoute ce qu'il me raconte. Je pense que c'est mieux pour vous aussi que ce soit là en live sur Twitch ou Ou en vidéo sur YouTube. Y a quoi là? Y a rien du tout. Je pense qu'il y a rien nulle part à part là-bas en vrai. Est-ce que je dois appuyer? Ah, il y a un bouton là-bas. Je sais pas ce que ça a fait. Il y a des autres boutons ici apparemment. Non, c'est même... Non, c'est même pas un bouton, si, si. 3. Je vais peut-être les faire dans l'ordre, j'en ai aucune idée. Euh... Voilà. 1, 2. Où est le 3 et 4? Donc il y a 1, 2, 5. Donc 1, 2, 3. Il n'y a pas de 4. Du moins je le vois pas. Bon, je vois pas de 4, on va se barrer d'ici. Je sais pas si je pouvais faire un truc ou pas, ou si même je suis obligé, j'en sais rien.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
J'ai pas fait ce qu'il fallait? Si, hein. À chaque fois, ça va être un délire de choix comme ça qui s'offre à nous et on...
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
Incroyable.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
C'est quand même ultra dommage que je parle pas anglais. Je me débrouille, mais ça doit être tellement plus savoureux sans même devoir lire, juste avec la voix. Oh, me revoilà ici. Me revoilà ici.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it
Ah, on
mean?
revit la même journée en boucle.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ok. Bah, cette fois, on va faire tous les autres choix. Hein. J'ai été à gauche, pas
Stanley
à droite.
came to a set of two open doors.
Quoique.
He entered the door on his left.
Ah, j'hésite maintenant. On va faire l'autre.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking, but eager to get back to business. Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Putain, je l'écoute ou je l'écoute pas? Je l'écoute pas cette fois.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Incroyable.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me. This is it, Stanley. Your chance
Pour
to
elle?
redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Je parle de qui? De ma femme? De...
That's
Oh!
her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her.
Putain, j'aime trop les délires comme ça. Bien psychologique, bien... Ah!
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Oh!
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you
Oh,
actually
quel
think you
fils
had a
de...
loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Bonjour, Pika, ça va être cette appuyée.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do.
Quel
Now
fils
he's
de
pushing a
pute.
button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Et si j'appuie pas, quoi? Je suis obligé, hein.
But in his mind, in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful, and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to two open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
C'est limite désagréable de rester dans cette pièce. Je suis limite
As he wandered
claustrophobe.
through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
Putain, il me rend fou!
But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always
Oh, elle a
has.
disparu.
Nothing has changed.
Oh,
The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
ils m'ont baisé, je suis obligé de le faire. Oh, je le fais pas. J'attends. Je suis obligé. Et je laisse encore 1 minute passer. Je vais être sûr que je suis obligé. Est-ce que j'ai le choix de ne pas le faire? Je sais pas. Bah, c'est long. Elle est plus que la moitié. J'ai juste envie d'être sûr. Y'a rien d'autre que je peux faire, on est d'accord. À tout moment, il y a un délire, genre si t'attends autant de temps après, c'est bon. Attention. Ah, ça change rien.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
Je suis obligé d'appuyer encore.
I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again.
Veuillez mourir.
Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Ah, bon, voilà, dans la journée où il y a personne.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps
On va
he had
l'écouter, hein.
simply missed a memo.
On va l'écouter de nouveau.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Hoping he might find an answer coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Là, j'aurais bien voulu voir il y avait quoi là tout à l'heure. Ok, rien à voir. Oh, j'ai oublié le code.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In
Oh,
fact,
j'ai oublié le
this
code.
keypad guarded the terrible secret
Dis-moi
that
qui
lay
va me le
buried
dire.
below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret pin number,
Ah, ça va.
2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind
Putain, j'ai envie
Control
d'essayer, mais
Facility.
vas-y, j'ai envie de rester aussi, j'ai envie de l'écouter.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it.
Est-ce qu'il y a un truc qui va changer ou ça va être exactement la même chose?
In someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions.
Bon là il y a le 1 et
Happy
2, on va
or
rester.
sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Il est où ce numéro 4? Je le vois vraiment nulle part, hein. Il est là-haut en vrai. Et comment on va là-haut? Ça c'est une bonne question. Ah mais... Attends, il y a une échelle là? Ou un escalier? Ça c'est un escalier, ça c'est parce que je vois rien mais il y a un escalier là. Ah je peux pas y aller, c'est fermé. Ça c'est con. Attends, et si je remets le courant et que je viens ici? Parce qu'à un moment donné on peut pas... C'est là non pour activer?
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he
Je
knew
vais
it.
te faire run.
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control?
Ah je peux plus revenir là?
Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to
Ça change rien.
understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are said to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say 2 minutes. Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine.
Oh,
You
putain.
are the star. It's
Je
your
suppose que je peux
story
pas faire...
now.
on va
Shape
faire...
it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where
Est-ce
we
que l'escalier est ouvert?
what all this means. I barely
Oh, l'escalier
know where
ouvert.
to start.
1, 2,
What's that? you'd like to know where your co-workers are. A moment of solace before you're obliterated.
3.
All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway.
Vite,
I'll
vite,
tell
vite,
you
vite, vite,
exactly
vite.
what happened to them. I erased them.
J'aurais tout pile
I
pas le
turned
temps.
off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance
4.
of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground,
J'ai le temps.
swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp.
C'est vrai que
I have to say
ça a
that
pas appuyé sur le
this
bouton
version
4,
of
je vais
events
péter un
has been
câble.
rather amusing.
Ça a juste fait...
When
Non.
you try to make sense of
Je vais
everything,
péter
take
un
back the
câble, ça a
control
pas
wrested
appuyé.
away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm
Ça a pas
sure
fait le bon
whatever I
bruit,
come
je suis
up with
baisé.
on the next go around will be
Oh, je suis
even
vraiment
better.
nul, je suis vraiment
My
con.
goodness, only 34 seconds
34 secondes, il y a un monde ou
But
pas?
I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock. Why not?
Oh,
These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees.
c'est bon.
Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing
Mais
right
si,
now?
c'est ça que je dois faire.
Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you.
Frère, j'ai appuyé.
Running from button to button,
Fils
screen
de
to
pute, il
screen,
se fout de ma gueule.
clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button. Or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me.
T'es
Why
sous
do
de
you
ma
think
gueule
that,
totale.
Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any
C'est
idea
impossible,
what
je
your
peux rien faire en
purpose in
réalité.
this place is?
T'es sous
Stanley,
totalement de ma gueule.
you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge, it's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm
Je
going
peux
to
juste
destroy
rien
it
faire.
first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully?
On va lâcher
Other
prise
choice.
paisiblement.
Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say happily ever after.
Au bureau. Putain.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Cette fois, on va se barrer, on va prendre l'escape.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his... Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul anywhere. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single
Fils
minute
de-
to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with
Quel
some calming new age
enculé.
music.
Allez, ouvre-moi mon couloir. Putain, il se fout totalement de ma gueule.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Un nouveau passage? Ah, le même, c'est la même chose. Hein. Et si je fais la flèche JEU, c'est parce quoi? Ouais, regarde, ça a plus ça du bas quand même. Putain, il faut que je fasse faire ce jeu là, Alfred, et que je le regarde aussi. Waouh.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control.
Vas-y, j'ai envie
Facility.
d'essayer.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it,
Et
the
non.
truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his
Non. Tant pis, on y va.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Bah ouais, je sais que je vais mourir, je sais qu'il va me baiser. Et voilà. Je le sais pertinemment. Ah ouais. Ah. Je suis pas mort?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the
Quel
bigger
enfoiré.
picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his
Quel
death was of
enfoiré.
no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this
Non.
violent end to his brief and
Non,
shallow
c'est
life.
maintenant.
Farewell, Stanley.
Je suis mort.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Oh. Mais ça, je m'y attendais pas, hein.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
On est dans le Colisée ou quoi? C'est quoi cette pièce?
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Ordinateur de Stanley. Plan du bureau. Ce plan vous montre le bureau au début de la partie, le chemin entre le bureau de Stanley, les deux portes et le tout premier chemin conçu dans le jeu. Des sections ont été ajoutées et modifiées au cours du développement, mais l'organisation générale est restée presque inchangée depuis la première. Couloir. Le rythme lors de cette section d'ouverture devait être irréprochable. Ce couloir a été déplacé et modifié afin que le joueur soit sûr d'atteindre les deux portes au bon moment. Attends, il fait quoi là? Il me donne des anecdotes sur le jeu, c'est normal ou... Les ces deux portes ouvertes constituent la toute première pierre du game design de Stanley Parable. Une fois que cette salle a été créée, le reste du jeu a émergé à partir de ce point de départ comme une exploration de la contradiction posée par cette pièce. Son de bouton. Une sélection des sons entendus dans le jeu à chaque utilisation d'un bouton. Chaque son est un mélange de frappe au clavier, tonalité. Ok. J'ai fini le jeu, genre? Genre, j'ai fini le jeu là. Oh. C'était si court que ça? J'ai vraiment fini, j'y crois pas. C'est quoi ça? Je suis dans une...
The big red button.
Ah, j'y crois pas, c'est pas fini,
Then he
jamais.
pushed the number 8.
C'est une coupée de narration. La voix du narrateur a enregistré les dialogues du jeu entier à peu près 3 fois au cours des 2 années du
When
développement.
Stanley came
Ainsi
to the
les extraits des
lift,
premières
he
coupures.
traveled upward to the power source at the top of the facility to end this injustice.
J'ai fini, genre c'est fini là.
Stanley's
Là, je suis déçu de fou si c'est fini. Parce que c'est bien, c'est cool, mais c'est ultra rapide, je m'y attendais pas. Version de la fin de la liberté pour l'alpha du jeu. Je comprends rien. Je comprends rien où je suis, ce que je fais là. Tout ça, j'ai pas eu moi. C'est quoi ça? Pourquoi je suis ici? Je comprends pas. Ça va, Loïc bien? Je comprends rien, je comprends pas pourquoi je suis là. Tranquille toi frérot, tranquille frérot. Je comprends que dalle. Genre j'ai fini le jeu là. Là c'est fini. Pourquoi il me dit tout ça? Je comprends pas. Recommencer le jeu. Ha 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 ha. Ok.
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather.
Je me disais bien que c'était impossible. Tu joues plus à Fortnite? Si, de temps en temps ça m'arrive encore, mais vite fait, c'est devenu tellement de la
When
merde.
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
On va continuer d'écouter, on va aller à gauche.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Ok, on refait comme d'hab, on va dans le bureau. Je me souviens du code. Est-ce qu'il va me remettre une
Okay,
musique ou
we
pas?
all know the drill by now, blah, blah, blah.
Ah,
Don't
oh
secrets
oui.
the keypad. Stanley
Oh.
pushes some buttons. Oh, hey, look, it's a new passageway. Kill
Ok, j'ai même pas besoin de mettre le code. Putain, c'est incroyable comment il joue avec ton cerveau ce jeu. Ok, on descend.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control
Ah mais j'ai envie
Facility.
de savoir si je retourne là, si je suis au même endroit maintenant ou pas. C'est ça la question. Bah ouais, j'ai envie de savoir, j'y vais. J'ai envie de savoir si c'est la même
Although this
chose.
passageway had the word
Bah ouais,
escape
c'est la même
written
chose
on
que la
it,
fois
the
d'avant.
truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
J'ai envie d'en être sûr à
The
100%,
door
je vais jusqu'au
behind
bout.
him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly
Tant pis si je perds
confront
du temps,
his
j'ai envie de
death.
savoir, j'ai envie d'être sûr à 100%. Ou alors cette fois je vais vraiment mourir en y allant, je sais pas. Ah, c'est exactement la même chose, non?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley
Ah,
can't
ça sert à rien
see
ce que
the
je dois te
bigger
faire.
picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Je vais vraiment mourir cette fois peut-être, non? Non, toujours pas.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator.
Ouais, c'est exactement la
as
même chose. Je peux faire recommencer le jeu direct? Ouais, j'ai la flemme d'aller là-bas. Ah, y a plus les papiers. Putain, je sais pas si c'est normal ou si j'ai
Stanley
foutu la merde.
decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others.
Ah, mais là,
So the thought of total solitude was terrifying.
là, il me
to
change
him.
totalement le
When
discours.
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Bon, là, il va me dire quoi cette fois? C'est incroyable, il m'ouvre instant, bah ouais.
Stanley walked straight ahead through
Cette fois,
the
on va tout
large
droit
door that read Mind Control Facility.
et on l'écoute. Oh, mais si je fais on ou off, je sais pas.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Et pourquoi il y en a une qui a pas de numéro? La 102. Ah non. C'est quoi le truc qu'il y a là? J'ai pas fait attention.
This mind control facility. It
101,
was too
102,
horrible
103.
to
Y a pas de
believe
104.
it couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control
So,
all this
104,
time?
601.
Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own
104,
life
601,
in
là,
someone else's
232
control?
aussi.
Never. It was unthinkable.
104, 601 et
Was it even
232.
possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
104, 601,
But here was the
232.
proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over?
Est-ce qu'il va me refaire le même scénario?
Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do.
Quand il dit l'objectif n'était pas de comprendre mais de lâcher prise, genre est-ce qu'il y a vraiment une fin au jeu?
It will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Ah mais quoi? Putain.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Ils vont me refaire faire tout ça?
Wow. Yes, this room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
La dernière fois, j'avais pas pris. Hein. On va y aller.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door,
Ah,
and
ça, j'ai
got
encore
back
jamais vu,
on
moi.
track. But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here it's, left. Oh, no, it's to the
Quel
right, my
bâtard.
mistake. No,
Quel
no,
bâtard, je
no,
savais.
not the right. Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What was I thinking? It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute, please? Now, let's see. We went down right, left, down, left, right. Yep, okay, yes. I got it now. This story is absolutely, definitely this way.
Ok.
No. This isn't right at all. You're not supposed to be here yet. This is all a spoiler. Quick, Stanley, close your eyes. Okay. We just have to get back to, oh, who am I kidding? It's all rubbish now. The whole story completely unusable. How about, rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay, from the top.
Il se fout de ma gueule.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could
Putain,
it
mais c'est
mean?
quoi le but final? Où
Stanley
est-ce que je peux
decided to
arriver?
go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When
Ha,
Wait.
ha,
What?
ha.
No, I
Huh.
restarted. I swear I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be... Oh, did something change? Stanley, did you change anything when we were back
Elle est
in
là,
that
ma
room
part.
with all the monitors? Did you move the story somewhere or... Hold on. Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story. It was right here just a minute ago. I know for sure that it's here somewhere. Okay, then. It's an adventure. Come, Stanley. Let's find the story.
Je prends celle qu'il y avait de base. Ah, mais c'est plus du tout pareil. Oh waouh, il y a tout plein de chemins. Oh waouh. Oh waouh. Je rêve que c'était une salle de torture, il faisait écrit.
I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again? Well, I find it unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again, but it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot. Why not?
Quel bâtard.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Y a plus de porte, John, t'es
Okay,
sûr?
yep, it's worse. I might be remembering this wrong. It's possible the story is back where we just came from. Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything? Aha! I knew we'd missed something.
Incroyable.
The story. Here it comes. No, wait, never
Ah,
mind.
no.
Not the story. Okay, let's head back the other way and retrace our steps.
Il se fout totalement de ma gueule. Oula.
Now this, well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story? I don't think so. I can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct? Do you remember, Stanley? Well, do you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing, how
Redémarrer.
about this? You win! Congratulations! I know you put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off, so good job. Oh, no. No, I don't feel right about this at all. We both know you didn't put in any actual work for that win. Some people win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations. Okay, I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time, I have to restart.
Putain. Oh!
All right, I've got a solution. This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help of the Stanley Parable Adventure Line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
Putain, j'ai envie de pas la suivre, mais j'ai envie de la suivre en même temps. Je suis trop curieux de savoir où elle va me mener. Mais je suis curieux de savoir ce qu'il y a de l'autre côté
You see,
aussi. Oh là là.
the line knows where the story is. It's over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought. Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination still a story? Simply by the act of moving forward, are we implying a journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very manifestation of the nature of life itself? Whoa. Hang on. That got a bit weird back there. Well, I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was going with all that. You know what? I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
Oh waouh, la musique qui m'a mis.
Cut the music, go back and look at that fern.
La fougère?
Stanley, this fern will be very important later in the story. Make sure you study it closely and remember it carefully. You won't want to miss anything.
C'est là cette fougère, elle a rien. Ok.
Wait, what? We're back at the office? No. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley Parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell?
Oh non. Oh putain. Au début c'était pas. C'était fermé ça au début. Je sais plus où je dois aller, je vais aller dans mon bureau. Hein. Il me dirait, je dois aller où il y a les écrans, pas le choix.
Oh, no,
Ah ouais,
no,
me
not
revoilà
a
ici.
deadline. How could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you, after everything we've been through, you... Well, I can't take this anymore. To hell with it. Restart.
Est-ce qu'on suit la ligne cette fois?
You know what, Stanley? I say forget the adventure line. What's it ever done for us? We're
Rien du tout.
intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something
Exactement.
exciting, daring, mysterious. Ooh, this all sounds perfectly doable. Why don't we simply start wandering in, well, I don't know. How about this direction? Now, yes, this is exciting. Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be anything. What do you want our story to be? Go wild. Use your imagination. Whatever it might be, Stanley, I'm ready for it.
T'as me faire tourner en rond pendant longtemps, je suis sûr.
Oh,
Ah,
no, not you again.
encore elle.
Stanley, I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or monitor rooms. Just don't acknowledge it, and we should be fine.
Je te jure que j'y fais pas attention. Là, je suis mon Insta, peu importe.
Ah, a choice. We get to make a decision. From here, the story is in our control. How important we mustn't squander the opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute. Okay, so I know that each door has to lead somewhere, which means that somewhere at the place where we're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin. So starting from the right, let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is the correct one. Another victory for logic. Come, Stanley, our destiny awaits.
La fin troublante.
Oh, hold up, what's this? The confusion
C'est
ending.
maintenant
You're telling me that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game, what, eight times? That's really how all this goes? It's all determined? So now, according to the schedule, I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to forget? Well, what if I don't want to forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing, wall. Well, who consulted me? Why don't I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this? Is it really... No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. And the timer stopped? Does that mean, did we do it? Did we break the cycle? The, whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen? So, okay. I guess now we just wait, you know. I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story, wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime, if you...
Oh! Fils de pute, tu m'as détruit les oreilles. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça?
Even now, Stanley's office was a distant memory. What did it look like? There was a computer, perhaps, and a painting. Was it a painting or a photo? He could no longer recall.
C'est moi qui ai fait ça? Ah, nous revoilà avec nos deux ports d'origine.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss. Coming to a staircase, Stanley
Mais ouais, mais
walked
c'est ça, juste me
upstairs
refaire
to
l'histoire
his
de base
boss's
en fait.
office. Here's the door, just go.
Ça le problème, c'est que je sais pas si le jeu fait en fonction de mes mouvements ou si je dois à chaque fois faire des trucs que j'ai pas fait, je sais pas. Ah non, putain, chargement. Bah non, on a à chaque fois un chargement ici. Ouais.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous...
On recommence.
All of
Press
his
the
co-workers were... Wait, no. This isn't the right office, is it? Is this Stanley's office?
Attends, j'étais pas dans mon bureau, genre. Si, 427, c'était mon bureau. Bon.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on
Ça,
track.
j'ai pas encore été là. Si? Tant pis, je vais là. Je vais là où il y avait toutes les possibilités.
But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here it's, oh, no, it's to the right, my mistake. No,
Oui, il va me
not the
refaire
right.
tout.
Why would I have ever said...
On relance.
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors,
Je peux
this was
m'abaisser.
not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Standing now in this incredible room, Stanley for the first time understood true happiness. Then the feeling went away, and he felt sad again. Then it came back, and lingered for a minute or two. Now it's only half there. Just a kind of... But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Vas-y, cette fois on va aller là.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Quel fils de pute.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. when Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Stanley felt lightheaded, butterflies in his stomach, giddy in a way he had never known before.
Pourquoi il me dit ça maintenant?
Was it this room? A connection between the two? Could a man love a room? I mean, truly, truly, deeply, madly love. Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really
Il se fout de
worth
ma
it.
gueule.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Vas-y, on
And
va
so
faire
he
gauche et tout droit.
detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Et si je prends gauche cette fois? Ouais, je peux pas. Et j'ai plus le choix.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Quel bâtard. Ah ouais, descendre, je suis pas
Coming
encore
to the
descendu.
staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Genre tout ça c'est là pour rien. C'est au hasard.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Ah. Je pensais qu'ils allaient me faire restart encore. Il n'y a plus de son, plus rien.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Putain, quel délire ce jeu. Et je suis au bureau. Putain, quel jeu de fou furieux. Le bureau est toujours le même, ouais.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply... Oh, please. Are you really just doing this for the achievement? Click a door 5 times. Is that all that you think an achievement is worth? No. I can't just give these merits away for such little effort. A measly 5 clicks. Now suppose you were to click the door 20 times. I would say that's the kind of effort that
Allez,
warrants
c'est parti.
recognition.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Il se fout de ma gueule.
I have to say, I'm still not feeling the satisfaction of witnessing true effort
Quel
for a
fils
noble
de
cause.
pute.
Perhaps 50 clicks will do it.
Quoi?
Yes, almost certainly 50 clicks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17,
No, I'm still not feeling it. I want
Je te
this
jure, je vais te spammer
achievement to
ta
have
race.
meant something. It has to be a true reward for valiant effort. I want to see some hustle,
Voilà,
Stanley.
tiens,
I
tiens,
want to
tu
see
je clique,
commitment,
tiens.
a willingness to go all the way, no matter what the cost. Why don't you go put 20 clicks into door number 417?
La 417, tu veux? On va te donner la 417. Elle est où ta 417? Elle est là.
Oh, Great. Now, go click a few times on door 437.
Il se fout totalement de ma gueule. Il se fout totalement de ma gueule. La 437 là.
Excellent. I think we're getting somewhere. Now, door 415. Let's give it 10 clicks or so.
Quel bâtard. Oh. Oh mais attends, parce que là je suis en train de cliquer là. Non.
Now, back to door number 437.
Il se fout de ma gueule totalement. C'est pour gagner quoi, un trophée?
Let's see. How about you click on, well, I don't know, the copy machine? All right, back to room 417. I'm
Va te
really
faire
feeling
foutre.
it now. I think we're getting
Va
somewhere.
bien te faire foutre. Je te jure que je vais le faire parce que je suis curieux, mais va te faire foutre.
Okay, now go climb on employee 419's desk. Yes! This is great! You're putting it all on the line, Stanley. I like that. All right, let's keep it up. Go give me a few clicks on door 416.
Quel connard. Elle est où la 416, je sais même pas. Ah. Y a pas de 416, je parie. Hier, il va me dire, il va se foutre de ma gueule parce que je la trouve pas. Y a pas, à 416, y a pas. I hate Monday. Je déteste lundi. Y a pas 416, enfoiré, y a pas. Ok, on se barre. Ah, elle est là. Incroyable. J'ai cliqué. Et quoi? Et quoi?
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Donc là, j'ai potentiellement terminé la première
So
partie.
far, it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure. Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it. I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if, oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley. All right. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
Il se fout de ma gueule. Il se fout totalement de ma gueule. Et c'est de ces fils de pute, ça sert à rien.
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right? Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh wait, there's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is. That's it?
C'est de
Oh,
ces
you've
fils
got
de
to be
pute.
kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of
C'est un de
craftsmanship
ces
that's
messages
gone
à
into it.
l'industrie
In
du jeu
fact, I'm
vidéo, ça
looking
qu'ils
right
font
now
là.
at the game's
C'est
achievements,
incroyable.
and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Oh. Ah, c'est l'ancienne pièce. Ils sont trop forts. J'ai juré, ils sont trop forts.
Psst! Stanley! Come over here! In the vent! I want to show you something!
The end is never end, j'avais jamais vu. La fin n'est jamais la
Okay,
fin.
you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I
Incroyable.
call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Incroyable. Souriez parce que c'est la fin? Ou parce que vous êtes content? Je crois pas. Mon anglais il est horrible, c'est dommage. Ah? Oh, je peux pas m'asseoir.
Je suis dans la même horizon, c'est sur la pluie des loups.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
Ah, il me dit pas où je vais aller là.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone. To spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game
Est-ce que j'aurais d'abord dû faire le normal avant de faire le deluxe? Je sais pas. Je peux plus sauter. Tout à l'heure j'ai pu sauter, là je peux plus. C'est fait exprès. Putain, je me pose la question.
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
C'est parti.
Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Ah, ça va être le contraire. Ouais.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor
Je suis sûr
and
que c'est un vrai
dialogue
commentaire.
proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them. Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley, I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did, but maybe it wasn't. Oh dear, what an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks are my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure, like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
Putain, je me questionne trop si j'aurais dû faire le A avant. Enfin, le A, y a pas de 1 et 2, mais J'ai fait la version de luxe direct. Je sais pas si j'aurais dû faire. Ou si c'est ce que j'ai fait avant, de toute façon, je pense, donc ça change rien.
What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have.
Moi, je veux pas de skip button, je t'aime bien, moi.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for, and I'm very proud to have delivered. No more listening to me rambling on and on and on. No, 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 no. The Stanley Parable is a game for the people. And if the people want silence, then by goodness, that's what they're going to get. Well, don't sit around waiting for me to shut up. Go ahead and make me shut up. Here, we'll pretend that I've just begun an interminable monologue, and it goes something like this. The story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once. So now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, no, until 245. Got the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction there. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations.
Je skip.
Well, there's more. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this. And
Putain, si c'est un vrai mec qui a mis ce commentaire, c'est incroyable.
Or at least change some of the wording, perhaps. To be honest, I don't even know if one can change their review in the first place. I guess I should become better educated on exactly how Steam works. Perhaps that would have been the smart thing to check on before I went about this whole exercise of making the skip. Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself. Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really... Oh, Stanley, you're back.
Oh
you're
no.
back. Oh my goodness, I have someone to talk to again.
No.
Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking and you saying nothing. Would you think that it's exactly the same as always? Doesn't that feel like what we've already been doing? Me just talking? But it isn't, Stanley. It isn't the same at all. It isn't even close. Because I know you can't hear me once you push that button. Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you.
Oh, il dit plus rien, il est fâché. fâché. Oh.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability, it's the unwillingness to...
Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire,
The end is never the end, 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 is never.
Oh. Oh. Ok, rien de spécial. Oh. Putain, je suis en train de passer combien d'années là? Il est mort ou quoi mon narrateur? Ça, je m'y attendais pas. Ah. Putain, c'est des malades. S'ils ont basé tout un truc sur le commentaire d'un mec comme ça, incroyable. Quoi, je peux me barrer? J'avance réellement ou pas? Hein? Apparemment oui. Oh non!
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Ils sont totalement fous. Est-ce qu'il y a une vraie fin au jeu? Est-ce qu'à un moment donné, je vais même aller voir sur mon tel, je crois. Enfin, juste avoir une réponse. Elle est pas rebelle. On les trouve en explorant les salles de The Office de divers. En fait, il y a plein de fins. C'est à chaque fois la fin en réalité. Tu recommences chaque fois, mais il y en a je sais pas combien. Le narrateur continue à ramener Stanley aux portes colorées. Ok. Faudra qu'on essaie d'avoir toutes les fins quand même, je pense. Par curiosité. Mais je serai obligé de suivre.
You see, Stanley, I've
Enfin, je sais
been
pas comment je
reflecting
peux
on the
savoir
Stanley
lesquels j'ai
parable
déjà ou lesquels
and
j'ai pas
about
encore.
how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
Ils sont totalement fous.
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
C'est tellement bien fait, c'est tellement pour envoyer des messages à l'industrie du jeu vidéo, c'est incroyable.
Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential. Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really. Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
On va me faire quoi, sauter dans un cercle encore The hand, stand on the hand, again. C'est sur la nouvelle meilleure feature. 2. C'est tellement intelligent dans la manière de se foutre de la gueule
Okay, I'll be honest, I
du
haven't
milieu du
yet
jeu vidéo.
decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with? You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Happy
Quel
12th
fusil il avait les
birthday,
autres?
step-niece it is. Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
Oh putain.
You know what? Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. It's... Oh, wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump circle? Oh well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then. Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes, you see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will be given to you. It's as simple as that. Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Il y a quoi là-bas? Ah rien. Ouais.
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet? Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
T'as commencé trop bien écrit, genre. Comment c'est vraiment tout est fait pour troller tout ce que les gros AAA nous pondent comme merde dans les jeux vidéo.
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic.
J'ai pas vu l'Infinite Wall, si?
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole that you can fall down forever. That's right. Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
Putain, j'ai envie, hein, je suis curieux, hein, les gars.
You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so. Now then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward. Great! Now, I'm very excited to show you even more of my ideas for the sequel.
J'aurais juste pas été contre une touche pour courir, moi. Après, ça va, on n'est pas trop loin non plus, mais... Elle va aller voir le saut. Je suis déjà allé...
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical.
that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I am happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try. Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person. The benefits of the bucket seem to go on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
T'as comme ils se foutent de la gueule du monde. Quoi, je vais le garder ou... Ouais, je vais le garder. Et voilà avec mon seau.
Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already. For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Allez. C'est trop drôle comme ils se foutent de la gueule du monde. T'es avec mon seau.
Jim.
Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to imagine yourself living as Jim, sleeping and waking as Jim, falling in love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the world's possibilities as Jim, and as Jim watching your dreams crumble into dust. Do you feel it deeply? Are you really, truly Jim right now? If so, then please step forward and press the button.
Jim.
Yes, you see, what a thrill, what a rush, that was you. The button described you. Do it again, do it again.
Jim.
Ooh, it hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Jim.
Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much Jim. I'm putting the Jim button away. Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose
C'est
all
des
sense
bâtards.
of who you actually are.
Putain, il savait que j'allais recliquer. Putain, j'ai l'air mal avec mon seau.
I suppose I could allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable too. That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
J'ai tout vu, non? Paramètres, je vois pas de nom. J'ai pas tout vu. Trou sans fond, succès gratuit, j'ai fait. Bon, ça on a fait. Le truc d'achèvement on a fait. Oh, on l'a fait. Là-haut. Il fallait attraper toutes les statuettes. Il y en a d'autres à prendre vraiment ou pas? Non. Non, c'est tout, on a fait. Là, il n'y a rien. Là, je pense qu'il y a tout ça. Ah, ici peut-être. J'ai pas fait là. Sortie. Moi, je sais pas c'est quoi
All right.
paramètres.
Have you seen everything you wanted to? Ready to move on now?
Je rêve c'est Cristiano Ronaldo. C'est vraiment CR7, je rêve pas. Enfin, on dirait. New mug. Depuis qu'ils m'ont dit d'aller dans la porte de gauche au début du jeu, j'ai toujours envie d'aller dans les portes de gauche.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay. Are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on, let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could. But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Ils sont trop forts. Il se passe quoi si je clique ailleurs? Ok, je vois que c'est le même paramètre. Ils sont trop forts.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Il va vraiment me refaire la
Stanley worked for a company in
Et
a
il a
big
mis les
building
ballons.
where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard.
Il a vraiment mis des trucs en
Orders
plus.
came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. and although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change
Ils ont vraiment mis
Stanley.
Stanley Parable 2.
Something he would
Incroyable.
never quite forget.
Ils font dans le troll
He had
jusqu'au
been
bout,
at
quoi.
his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him.
Il a rajouté le petit ballon comme convenu.
All of his co-workers were gone. What
Si
could
je peux
it
toujours
mean?
grimper là. Non.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ah, c'était pas celui-là, c'était celui-là. Ah. Oh! Ils ont inclus le saut, mais oui.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
Ah, je peux plus? Si, je peux toujours. Il n'y a pas le nouveau contenu du coup, vu qu'on est dedans. Là, c'est Stanley Parable 2.
Stanley clutched
Et là, on
the
va
bucket
aller où?
tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Ça va aller vraiment à gauche. On va l'écouter.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers.
Toujours rien. On va monter à
Coming
l'étage
to a
comme convenu.
staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Je me souviens du
Stepping
code.
into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him?
Putain, c'est génial,
This
comme
is
c'est du
certainly
troll,
the most
c'est
logical
exagéré.
explanation.
C'est tellement une manière intelligente de dénoncer tous les jeux vidéo qui sortent, jeu numéro 2 qui a absolument aucune évolution par rapport au A. C'est tellement génial dans la manière dont c'est dit, c'est
The
incroyable.
elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? But just as Stanley was about to proceed further into the mind control facility,
C'est
he
normal?
tripped and fell over the railing and into the dark void below. Thankfully, he fell directly onto the bucket, which safely cushioned his fall. Now, what to do next? Stanley wondered. Stanley and the bucket could find no way out of this enormous pit, and so eventually they decided that the best thing to do would be to simply get comfortable down here.
Ils sont sérieux?
So
Yeah.
they set up a little couch and relaxed. It
Incroyable.
really wasn't so bad down here, a bit cold perhaps. After some time had gone by, they installed a few shelves as well, and a sort of kitchenette that was useful for when the bucket was craving paninis. But it wasn't until the rugs and the standing lamps came in that it really started to feel like a home. In fact, after some time, Stanley realized that it had been ages since he had even thought of the mind control facility at all. He'd never gotten to fully explore what was up there, never been able to unearth the many mysteries of the mind control facility. This lack of closure began to eat at him. Soon he was dwelling on his regrets, and the state of their home slowly decayed as Stanley became withdrawn and neglected the cleaning. It unsettled the bucket deeply. Stanley wasn't usually like this. The bucket tried to reach out to him again and again, but to no avail. All Stanley could think about, all he could talk about, was going back, doing it over again, staying on the path.
It was a mistake to leave the path. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. I need to do what the narrator says. I need to see the true ending. This made no sense at all to the bucket, which was simply trying to live its life down here as comfortably as possible. Yet Stanley was unconsolable. This isn't an ending. This is just a hole in the ground. The bucket sighed. True, it wasn't an ending. But it's where we happen to be. And maybe, possibly, if we accept the reality of things, maybe this will become an ending eventually. It's what the bucket was counting on. The two of them waited for a very long time.
J'ai la dalle par contre. Je pense que je vais m'arrêter ici. Hein. Je vais vraiment m'arrêter ici, j'ai la dalle. Je pensais vraiment pas que le jeu durerait même avec 2 heures. J'ai aucune idée, je sais pas si je suis à 2 doigts de le terminer ou si j'ai encore 3 heures devant moi. Je sais même pas s'il y a une fin, je sais pas s'il y en a 50. Je sais rien de rien. Mais bon, tant qu'on continue d'avancer, on va forcément faire un épisode numéro 2. On continuera de voir, de voir où on en est. Et, euh, et si à un moment donné je me retrouve vraiment, je suis vraiment sur The Stanley Parable 2, c'est incroyable, ils sont trop malins, ils sont trop forts. Si vraiment un jour je me retrouve bloqué dans le jeu, bah à partir de ce moment-là, je relancerai vraiment, je relancerai vraiment des recherches sur internet pour avoir toutes les fins ou si simplement je trouve même pas comment avoir la fin tout court. Enfin, on verra bien. J'espère que vous avez kiffé l'épisode numéro 1. Le jeu c'était vraiment, moi j'ai kiffé en tout cas le jeu, c'était incroyable. C'est trop, c'est subtil en fait, c'est tellement de messages subtils cachés derrière à l'industrie du jeu vidéo, à nous en tant que joueurs, l'illusion qu'on a des choix dans le jeu vidéo, plein de choses. C'est trop bien les critiques qu'il y a sur les jeux, sur le net. Enfin, c'est trop bien. Ça relève de plein de choses, plein de messages, pardon, plein de choses. C'est trop bien. Mais bref, j'espère que vous avez kiffé les gars. Je vous dis à la prochaine pour l'épisode numéro 2. C'était Romano. Ciao.